Prima.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Cranford. I'm one of the art managers on the Hearthstone team. I hope you're all as excited as I am about Rostacon's Rumble expansion. And you know, one of the things that I get most excited about with the new expansion is opening the card packs. And that's why we're so excited to share with you today the experience of going behind the scenes with the artists and finding out what it takes to create one of these pack opening experiences. Let me start by introducing one of our 2D artists, Charlene Lescombe. Charlene, can you please introduce yourself and talk about what you'll be demonstrating today?
Sure. So my name is Schöne Päckchen. I'm a concept artist on Hearthstone. I've been working in the video game industry for 8 years now, and I was hired in Blizzard 3 years ago. So today I'm gonna show you how I did the Rastacal Rumble card pack, what were the challenges, and what were the different tests we made on it.
Yeah, Charlene's an amazing 2D artist. You guys are really free to watch how she designs and sketches. Next is Michael Altuna. Michael is one of the 3D artists on our team. Can you please talk about what you'll be demonstrating today?
Yeah, hey, my name is Michael Altuna. I'm a 3D artist on the Hearthstone team. I've been on the team for about 3 years. And today I'm going to be showing the process of how we create the pack for Rostacon's Rumble, the whole 3D process and getting it set up for animation and effects for when it's opening.
Looking forward to it, Mike. Thanks.
Peace.
Next is Hadija Chamberlain. She's the effects artist on Hearthstone. Can you please talk about what you're demonstrating?
Yeah, so I'm going to be going through the whole actual pack opening animation and how we set up and customize the animation clips for that, bring in all of the stuff that Tuna's going to be demoing, modeling, and do all of the effects for the actual explosions.
All right, looking forward to seeing what you do. Also, we want these demonstrations to be very interactive, so that at any point during the process, you can ask a question of any of the artists or myself. We have 2 microphones, one over to the left and one over to the right. And just step up and ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer you. All right, enjoy the demonstration.
Another question. Question normal.
Charlene, I'm curious, when you start sketching, I always see
Schöne Päckchen.
that you keep certain elements always in the same place on each of the packs throughout the expansions. But yes, some elements you're always changing. Can you talk about what you're allowed to change and which things you have to keep the same from expansion to expansion when designing these?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some
That's
remains
a
the
very
same.
interesting challenge. So the idea is that we have to keep some elements that were made for the previous packs. For example, we need to keep, you know, the triangle shape for the packs. We need to keep the strap, you know, to stitch everything together. And we need to keep the shape of the centerpiece with a swirl. But otherwise, for the rest, we can have way more imagination and change the texture or the materials. So for this one, I used the GBG pack as a reference center, but I'm gonna try to change, you know, the different textures on it.
I see a lot of animation artists will work with red pencils. Is that one of the reasons you sketch in red?
Yeah, absolutely. It is I used to work in some animation teams before too, so that's tips I kept from there.
About how many sketches will you generate before one is approved for the team?
It depends on the packs. I mean, on this one, for example, we had I made something like 9 sketches. So yeah, it definitely depends on the imagination and the request we have for each pack.
And what were some of the goals you were trying to accomplish with this one and this pack visually?
So for Rastacal Rumble pack, there were some materials we needed to respect. For example, these packs are very inspired by the Gurabash arena. So we definitely want to keep some textures that were in the arena. You can, if you play to WoW, you can remember, you know, this huge orange piece of fabric, you know, to the sunshade ones. You can remember the wooden gate too, so we wanted to try these elements for the packs.
Great. Looks like, do you have a question from the audience? Go ahead.
When designing card packs or things like that, do you pull from any particular, maybe like cultural inspiration or just real life items that you might see, like leather work or anything like that?
Which artist? Is that for Charlene?
For anybody.
Do you want to start? So where do you pull your inspiration and research when you start doing pack design?
Oh, so for this card pack, my inspiration definitely came from WoW, especially the Zendari area. But then for the texture and the painting work, for sure, knowing how the wood texture is, using pictures, from real wood texture is very helpful for sure.
Mike and Hadija, I'd be curious, do you pull a lot of real world reference when you're working, like with effects, to get inspiration, or where are you pulling your inspiration from?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, a lot of the inspiration for the effects at this point is just, whatever amazing piece Charlene has done for us, or whichever of the concept artist is doing that pack. A lot of the details of what we actually play up during the pack opening are kind of based on what what you could coalesce that set down into. So, in the case of this one, what we really wanted to kind of play up was that feeling of entering into Gurabashi Arena, and what would you see and feel as you were on your way there. So, it's big, it's flashy, it's bombastic. I'm going to be adding in some fireworks and stuff, just to really kind of play up that feeling of approaching this massive event. A little bit of maybe a little bit of the wrestling match flair, and some little bit of monster truck rally.
Yeah. I think that's the way I always look at it, is stylized realism. Because for it to be believable, you want to reference the real world, and you want fire to look like fire, but you don't want it to be like a movie. So you want it to be stylized and have that Hearthstone and Blizzard look and feel, which is, certain sensibilities of design.
Yeah, and Charlene does a really good job of when she's concepting out the pack. She does like a whole, basically just concept out the whole opening for us, and we can that's kind of the first thing I do before I even start modeling the pack, is I look at this and see what parts of the model I'm gonna need to separate out. And she has all the stages here. It looks like, once you drop this pack in, it's gonna charge up from the center of the crest and kind of span out with these runes, and then eventually it'll just explode. So I'll know that I'll need to break apart the sleeve on the pack. The crest will need to come off at some point, and then we'll have a bunch of fragments for the explosion. And it's a really good reference that we use all the time. So they usually do one for each set. So yeah.
Hey Mike, can you go a little bit more into it? So Hadija finishes the design. She gives you kind of this 2D effects sketch, and then where do you come in, and what is your task?
Yeah. So once Charlene's done, I drop her concept of the pack right into Maya, and I basically just starting drawing geometry right around the whole pack, kind of following the anatomy. You can see I've already got here the base shapes of the pack, and I just start basically creating all the geometry, and then that mesh will get turned into what goes into our game engine to animate and explode. So.
Great, thanks.
And I think something else, just from one of the things I'm going to be blocking in really early from Charlene's concept, is just I took all of the kind of glowy cracks that she concepted out, and I'm going to be doing something called a dissolve texture to use a gradient to slowly spread those across the whole pack. So this is the base for that, and then this effectively becomes an animation flip book once we pipe those two through a shader together. So that'll form a lot of the base of the timing for this thing.
So DJ, you're taking these masks, you're creating them in Photoshop, and then you're using them and animating them in Unity?
Yes.
Charlene, I'm curious. When you're creating one of these designs, you have to communicate an entire set in this very small rectangle. Do you ever, have a writer's block, the version of that for artists where you get stuck or you can't communicate an expansion of design, or how do you deal with that?
It happens from time to time. I can remember, for example, when I worked on the Frozen Throne pack, that was just a moment where I was just stuck, I wasn't able to find more ideas. And so that's exactly the moment where the team is very useful, because working in the video game industry is definitely a teamwork. And so I had when I don't manage to find more ideas, or when I need feedback, that kind of stuff, I just speak with Michael or Khadija or with the rest of the team, and that's definitely very helpful. There are so many times where I just weren't able to find more ideas, and the rest of the team was there. So yeah, it's very helpful.
So you find being a collaborative environment, having lots of artists to bounce ideas back and forth, really gets you out of any corners and helps you develop these?
Oh yeah, it's so refreshing. That's definitely for me it is the best way to work, for sure.
I'm curious, Mike, when you get a handoff from the 2D team,
Yeah.
and you can do whatever you want when you're sketching in 2D, but do you feel stuck, like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to accomplish that on the 3D side? Do you ever find that?
Not. So it's pretty straightforward when I get the concept from Charlene, but that more kind of like roadblock area comes when we actually start doing the pack opening and start animating it, because it's only like 2 seconds long to do that, and we start getting a lot of feedback, and we play it really slow while we're while like when Khadijah's like animating it and stuff, we're down to like frames basically looking at how it's opening. So that part you can go back and forth with a lot of feedback. So yeah. But
so you have to tell the entire story of the pack opening sequence. You have 2 seconds to do that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of time.
Yeah. It happens really fast, and if you have like a ton of packs, you need to have it needs to be quick. So, but, and trying to sell that, the relatability of the set to the pack and get all that kind of flavor in there with that. So.
I'm curious. After you do the modeling, are you responsible for the animation also?
It goes back and forth. Like Khadijah's title is an effects artist. I'm a 3D artist. But it's both interchangeable. I mean, we could both do the same thing. It's usually this pack in particular was done by Khadijah, the modeling and the effects. But
so you guys just pass it back and forth.
It kind of goes back and forth. Like you're more of like a generalist. Like you can work on. You're not just stuck doing just effects or just modeling. You can do pretty much anything. So.
Yeah, something that we used to have the pack opening pipeline more actually organized like this. Like it would go through concepting, then it would go to someone's model, and then someone else would do the animation. And it was a lot clunkier and wound up being a lot more work, just because if you're doing the animation and the modeling, then you know exactly what pieces you want, and you know exactly like what kind of blend shapes you want to create. So. Yeah, we stopped doing that just for the sake of efficiency, and now like if Tuna's doing the pack, then he's going to do all the 3D and all the animation, and same with me.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It looks like we have another question from the audience. Go ahead.
I asked which pack or like expansion theme that when you found out what it was gave you the most like trouble, like you had no idea what you were going to do right off your head.
Khadijah, what?
Did you see those headgears?
The most challenging expansion you've worked on.
Yeah.
I think, Charlene, you talked about the Lich King one, right? Ice Crown Citadel?
Yeah. Yeah, that one was the one that gave me the harder time, for sure.
Yeah. So what about Michael and Hadija?
Me, it was like the golden card pack, which has like all the goldens in it, because it was a physical pack, but when it actually explodes, it just kind of just turns into dust. So it's not, that one was a lot different than all the other packs. Like it just kind of like mowed it away versus like pieces like flying off. And yeah, I think
for me, I think it was probably Boomsday was definitely the one that made me the most nervous, because there are so many ways that could wind up looking like goblins versus gnomes. So I was just spending all this time staring at the goblins versus gnomes videos and like taking note of like, oh, like how big of details are they using, like how much jitter is there, like anything that I can make different so that these both feel kind of like unique and special to their sets, rather than just feeling like two really similar explodey packs.
Do you have a favorite pack from the expansions? Back?
I love all the animations. I had a feeling though that the Boomsday one was probably the most tricky to differentiate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wound up being really fun, and like, you know, the concept and the base were different enough to where I think it worked out pretty cool, but that one definitely kind of had me sweating up front.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Over here to the left, we have another question.
Yeah, could you talk about the sort of discrete phases of the overall animation of opening a card pack? Like there's the hover, the socket, there's like all sort of different steps.
Yeah.
I think Khadija would be the one to talk to this.
Yeah, I brought a chart.
How's the chart?
So here's my pack opening chart.
Schweine.
Make that a little bigger on your screen.
No.
Really?
Yeah,
What is
no,
this?
the bigger one, like, no. There you go. Yeah, so I mean, the overall arc is just, we want this kind of gradual build-up, and then like this skyrocket in energy at the explosion, and then we want the effects to kind of like have some linger so that they don't just feel like they're popping out of existence, but make sure that they're kind of getting out of the way relatively quickly, because like the pack's open now, you want to check out your cards, so we want to get the effects out of the way of the cards. And then there are a lot of little smaller
der Plan,
steps along here
wie das
I try to use to like
Pack
break up
geöffnet wird.
that just general arc and make sure that there are some like little
Die
spikes in energy
einzelnen,
and some little rest points.
wann der Effekt und so weiter, weiß ich nicht.
Right before the explosion is one of the ones I really try
Und da
to
ganz so um
keep
Explode.
subtle, but also emphasize so that it like really
FX
feels
Fall off.
impactful when it actually explodes.
Golden Legendary ganz hoch über die Skala hinaus.
Reminded me a lot of writers will come up with the story arc and the climax. And I was like, wow, they really are telling a story in 2 seconds, right? And the whole thing, and it resolves. So
Alter, nee.
over here to the right.
Oh ja.
I've just been wondering why you use
This is the
Photoshop
wondering.
instead of Illustrator for some of the earlier tasks. Like early in the concept.
Sure, yeah. Hadija, do you want to talk about why you choose to design in Photoshop and why you wouldn't use Illustrator?
Photoshop.
So,
Alle
have you
arbeiten nur
used
mit
Adobe
Photoshop.
Illustrator?
Du bist wie Photoshop.
well, I mean, Blizzard, and especially the Hearthstone team, is very open about what kind of software we want
Hat
to
ziemlich
use.
was Trollmäßiges.
But personally, I tend to prefer Photoshop because I feel like I have
so richtiger
way
Troll.
more spontaneity with, especially for sketching. I already worked with Flash on some other projects, but I definitely prefer Photoshop, especially for the organic side and the different brush you can get, and you wouldn't be able with Illustrator or with Flash have that kind of charcoal brush, so yeah, I definitely prefer personally, I prefer Photoshop.
I think most of us feel like sketching in Photoshop is the closest to sketching on paper. And so a lot of times you just want to, get your ideas down as quick as possible, where Illustrator feels maybe like a secondary thing where you would do cleanup tasks. And it feels, I think for most of us, that is the software might get in the way of our immediacy of designs.
Okay, so it's sort of like a rougher way to get it started.
Yeah, it's to simulate sketching on paper.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So normally, I think our team will spend about 2 weeks creating this pack, you know, from design to the end animation. But because we're trying to condense it down to 45 minutes, maybe you want to start showing what it looks like in color, Charlene?
Sure.
Just kind of bring up maybe some more advanced files. So Charlene, can you show how you would add color to your sketch? So I know you don't start with it fully colorized.
That is true. So actually, when I have the sketch that is done, it looks like pretty much to that. And then I'm just gonna, you know, select everything.
Weg hier.
And then I'm gonna paint inside. Once I have the main, so because it is linked to the Ramesh Arena, I'm gonna use an orange as the background color. And then I'm gonna paint inside. And trying to find what would be the best colors to fit with the orange, and to try to get a good harmony between each colors.
Yeah, I want to make sure everyone got to see this, because in the end, it's this beautiful three-dimensional painting. But when she starts in her block-ins, you'll see she's almost like cut paper. Each shape is just a flat, you know, cut paper approach, and then she'll build form later in the process. It's really fascinating to watch. Thanks, Charlene.
You're welcome.
So, Mike, when you start modeling these things, are you limited to how many pieces or how many polygons you have? Is that a thing you're thinking about, or what are your big concerns at this point?
The biggest concerns probably is just building it in a way that's easy to take apart. So, like, you know, having these separate, like having this crest be apart so we can, you know, animate that. The leaves are gonna come off, so those are separate too. There's not like really a big limitation to it. I mean, you don't go crazy and like make it super dense, but
No turbo mesh.
yeah, there's no turbo smooth on this or anything like that.
Voll
Like,
cool.
crazy, but yeah, it's like, yeah, there's. I mean, you just kind of just use good judgment, I guess. Yeah, there's not like a strict poly count or anything like that, but yeah.
Are you planning as you model, thinking about which pieces are going to have to separate for the explosion, for the animation?
Definitely, yeah. So I can kind of show you, like here, I just started basically doing kind of like a rough block out of this. It's not like super detailed. If you go in here, you don't see everything is cut out yet. That's kind of like you do after you get just the basic shape and the rough shape of it.
That one to the left, that's Charlene's just flat 2D image?
Yeah, this is literally like, it's just her
A plane projection?
concept on a plane, and then I'm just modeling on top of that plane. But once you, I can show you, once you get more detailed and start adding more geometry to the mesh, this is like the finished pack right here. So you can see there's a lot more geometry in here. The folds are modeled out, like all these pieces can be separated.
I've never seen the back of a pack. We never get to see that. Can you show us what the back looks like?
Sure, yeah. It's basically just a projection straight
it's like
through.
the front.
Yeah, don't tell anyone. Spoilers.
You guys are
yeah.
the only ones to see what the back looks like. Now you know.
But yeah, so once the pack's created, then we start. We do like to get it ready for animation. We'll make some morph targets, and we'll basically just copy this pack out and deform it a little bit, so you can kind of see here. We use the shape editor for this. We'll just make a couple of variations of it. Maybe like one that's kind of pushed out, like it's ready to explode, and then the opposite of it's shrunken in. And we can animate all that too, so you can kind of see like how the pack's going, and then it can get like really big. So
you're using like a deformation lattice to do that?
Yeah, it's just basically a lattice, and you're just pushing and pulling the points around, and then you can combine them together. So, and then we can control that in Unity when we're animating.
So Unity has an animation package, and so does Maya. which are we animating these in?
Everything's animated in Unity.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's like, I think it's pretty rare that we like hand animate something from within Maya and export it, but for the pack opening specific. And then, and one more thing is, we also do the explosion. So we'll take the pack and then we'll just basically cut it up into big pieces, get like some large pieces, small pieces. And some of these are hand animated within Unity, and some are turned into particle effects. So we know like the crest is gonna blow up and stuff. And just big kind of chunks of the mesh. We'll have,
Just spend your entire week creating it only to destroy it.
then you destroy all your work. Yeah, it's the best part.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for showing that.
Yeah.
You're just using like a polygon cut tool on your to cut that up.
Yeah, you're just going in and we're literally just like, yeah, you just come in here and you start cutting up the pack and then detaching pieces. And, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, thanks for showing that, Mike. That's great. So DJ, can you talk about, when you get all the pieces finished, whether you do them or someone else in a 3D package, how you set it up for animating and adding effects?
Yeah, so the entire pack opening is controlled through this one big parent animation clip, and that's going to manage all of the different pieces that are all of this stuff. And we can use it to animate all the different pieces. Like at this point, we can start animating all the different little scraps to kind of fly off screen, and they're gonna start like rotating around and stuff like that. But
You're tracking every single piece individually and animating it.
Yeah, it's a lot less. It's a lot fewer than it used to be, because we used to do like with the debris pieces, how it's really important to have like small, medium, and large elements just for kind of visual interest and variety. We used to do all of those as meshes, and we started doing a bunch of the small pieces as just particles instead. So it gives it a little bit more randomness, but it also means that we only have to animate like 12 really cool pieces instead of 30.
I started thinking of when Ray Harryhausen used to talk about animating all the skeletons, keeping track of every single piece. Similar problem.
And then we can also like trigger particle effects and manage the different material properties in this. So like I'm going to be triggering these little impact motes right about here, and then I've been animating like these light rays in and out so that they can fade. So it's a really easy way to kind of sync everything up that you couldn't really do if you did part of it in Maya and part of it in Unity.
So how do you control like the ease in and ease out? Do you have like a graph editor?
Yeah, so there's two different halves to the animation clip. There's the dope sheet, which is just all the actual keyframes, and you can adjust the numbers in here, but that's about it. And then they've got the curve editor where we can actually like really start controlling the ease in and ease out of everything, making sure that like all these curves are doing what we want. If they're giant batches that we want to adjust, then we can do that a little more easily here. So we want that first impact to be extra bright. This is an easy way to do it. Stuff like that.
That's fascinating. Thanks, Adisha. Looks like we have another question on the right.
Hi, my question's for Charlene. Earlier you showed us the 9 different sketches you did, and they had color in them, and they, were a lot of different concepts. I was wondering how you go from choosing those 9 to kind of finalizing a final concept, and if you did any more sketches after that, combining ideas.
So basically, once these 9 sketches were made, I didn't have more ideas. So I was thinking that, okay, that's the moment where I can show that to the rest of the team. And then that's the moment where we do our choice. So the one that we kept as the right idea was that one. And so we tended to prefer this one because it was more simple, because the other ones that had too much stone, like this one, for example, started to feel like busy, you know, with the different patterns. So we wanted something simple and fun, you know, and trying to have the more texture, not the more texture possible, but different ones, you know. You don't want a card pack to be only made with wood or stone, or especially on this one, because the arena was made of different materials. So yeah, the rest of the team was happy with this one. That was my feeling too, so we kept that one.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it always comes down to what expresses that expansion the best. You know, which elements, you know, the leaf ties in with the jungle and all the other elements. I was just adding to what you said. I said, you know, thinking about all the elements that will support and communicate what we want for that design on that particular expansion, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Shirley, I'm curious, when do you start building up and adding the light and form and three-dimensionality? Because I see at first you work flat, but later it becomes very three-dimensional. Can you talk about your thought process in that?
Yeah, so on Hearthstone, the specificity of the game is that you have these very saturated colors, it's very colorful, and you have to keep the cartoony shapes, but you have to try to make it feel real, you know, because Hearthstone is a very physical game, so the idea is to try to make the different elements feeling like real 3D, even if they have cartoony shapes, even if they have very saturated colors. You want to keep a certain realism, you know, with the textures.
Yeah, it really comes through. We have another question over here to the left.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you decide about the concept and the design, like which element is going to be and why you choose those elements, and more of the process?
Yes, I think she wants to hear like a typical creative brief, like from Ben Thompson, and these are the goals we're setting out to try to accomplish on this pack, right?
Sure. So we wanted to keep, you know, we wanted to keep the jewel part, and interesting because for the last step, that part changed a little actually, but we wanted to keep a jewel part for the center. And so if I come back to the previous sketches, to give you a feedback, for example, that was given to me, we didn't keep this wooden gate, you know, because we were feeling that it was too aggressive, for example, and we want to keep everything charming, you know. So yeah, and we wanted to keep the jungle vibe too. This one was one of the elements that was added for the last part, you know.
Yeah, we're being some of those initial conversations too. You know, we try different things, and we're like, oh, that feels too orcish. You know, what does it mean to feel troll? What are the elements of Stranglethorn? So we really like, you know, the jungle leaves. And it's just really trying to communicate, you know, look and feel vibe in just this one rectangle. So it's a lot of just trial and error. You know, does this look, you know, too orc and not troll, and back and forth.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you know, making sure it's true to Hearthstone, like the cute and charming vibe. You know, not getting too dark and too serious and too realistic. And
yeah.
You guys have anything to add to that, Mike or Hadija, about, you know, the briefs and trying to execute on the goals of a specific expansion?
Yeah.
Question.
Well, for my task, like, it's pretty much always usually figured out for me, but there is the initial, like, you know, we'll have a brainstorm meeting with artists and designers, like, you know, what kind of things we want to see in this pack, or, you know, what kind of things need to be in here. But yeah, for me, it's usually, I just kind of just make it, so yeah.
One shot.
Go straight,
Go
yeah.
for it. What about Hadija? When you get a brief, you know, we want these specific things for Rostacon's Rumble. Can you talk about that process and how you go from a brief to execution and actually applying the effects, you know, whether it be particles or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, there's not, there's a lot of freedom on the openings. I think, like, we have the same framework that we use every time. Like, I've got the I've got this, like the whole kind of skeleton that I started with. I start every time because there are like a lot of known beats for these, but once it gets to the actual animation and the opening and stuff, like as long as you're hitting those beats and everything's playing in the right spot, it's kind of really, really open. It's just like, what does everyone think is cool? What does everyone really want to capture about the set? If we have a concept, then that's always a lot of fun because it gives us like some really beautiful things. Like, well, now I've turned off the rays. It gives us some like really beautiful elements like those glow cracks that Charlene painted up to work with. But a lot of times there's not a concept, and we just kind of start with the pack, and whatever feels natural and awesome for that is what we do.
I'm curious too, are you sort of how Michael works? He goes in there one shot, one kill, or do you experiment more, and do sometimes those experiments work and sometimes they don't work? What's your creative process like?
We usually have a pretty good idea what we want to do. Like the theme's already been figured out in the concept and everything, so a lot of times it's just making sure that we're bringing all the right elements of that into the pack, and we're like capturing all of that without making it super busy or making the opening take too long or stuff like that.
Great. There's a question over here to the right.
Yeah, hi. So my question's about the tools that you guys are using. So as someone who's familiar with something like Photoshop but unfamiliar with something like Unity, what do you recommend for a total beginner is totally overwhelmed by all of these options? Where do I start?
Okay, before we start too, are you interested in pursuing 3D? Are you interested in pursuing effects, 2D, or all of the above?
Kind of all of the above,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Photoshop's definitely a good one to start. If you're doing 3D, there's a ton of free packages you could use. I would just download one of those and just start like watching tutorials online, or there's a lot of good videos. Unity is really easy to use too. Same thing. There's like just a ton of documentation on that. Unity is probably one of the most user-friendly engines, I think. I would say.
Yeah, I think Unity's really good for like picking up and going. Everything's kind of set up so that it's really easy to dive into any section of it. You've got the whole particle system editor is right here. They've got a ton of stuff in the asset store if there are like more pieces that you need, so you can kind of mix and match and build it that way. But yeah, Unreal's really fun for a lot of the same stuff as well, and again has like a really good online community. But I think Unity is definitely a lot friendlier up front. So yeah, I really like working in Unity. I use it for like programming my own little terrible games at home and stuff too. So the whole process in Unity I think is pretty user friendly.
Awesome, thanks.
Mike, what do you think about Blender as a free package?
Blender's awesome. Yeah, like a lot of people used to like laugh at Blender when they say use that, but like it's come like a really long way. It's with free software, like, and there's a ton of like awesome artists and programmers that are supporting it and making it better, and to be at the competition level of like Maya and Max and stuff. So
yeah, I think
it's a great tool to use. Yeah.
I was just saying, it's really amazing time. I know many people who I work with, who joke and say they got their degree from YouTube University, because now with all the online tutorials, you can learn 3D with a free program like Blender. Online tutorials, you can get the free version of Unity, learn all the particle animation effects.
You make your own games.
Yeah, you make your own games.
Just one person. So.
Yeah, I went to school for game art, but I pretty much self-taught on effects. So there's pretty much anything you want to learn. There are so many resources out there now. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, next question, go ahead.
Yeah. So there are some sets that have connections to one another lore-wise, sort of like Naxxramas and Knights of the Frozen Throne. I was just wondering if you want to focus on making the new pack unique, or if you sometimes want to connect the two, or have connections to the old one.
I think the packs are generally pretty standalone. Like we really want them to kind of embody what's cool and exciting about that pack, that set specifically. So we try to make them just kind of as unique as possible to that set. Charlene might have some other stuff on the concept instead.
Charlene, do you have thoughts? Do you try to link different expansions, or you try to make them unique, or what is that balance of having similar things versus different between expansions, right?
Yeah, I think each set have something exciting for sure, but I personally try to make each pack unique because we want to renew every time the experience of the player. So even if that's a temptation, to reuse some elements that were already used from the other packs. From a concept point of view, we definitely try to make each pack unique and to try to find new elements, new texture, even if there are some connections between the expansions.
Also, as we're coming up on the final 4 minutes, we'll get to the end and everyone can show you the final sequence. But I want to remind people, if you have additional questions, all three artists are going to go over right over there to the left where the meet and greet sign is, and they're more than happy to answer any questions you may have for them.
About anything. So,
yeah, whether it's career advice, art advice, feedback. All right, so your final steps, what do you think about, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm just getting like the last little part of the orange tapestry here. So you've seen the final pack, but like assuming that the pack was done at this state, I'll just get rid of this for now, but the last thing to do, like say once this was a finished pack, combine all this stuff, and then we have a tool, so basically all the textures and stuff is just a projection of Charlene's concept, and so I would just grab that from a top-down view, and then grab the concept, and then it's basically just a straight projection, and then you can apply the texture right on top of it.
Cool. That's how you marry the two.
Yeah, so that would be like how it works right there.
Yeah, thanks for showing that.
Yeah.
One more question to the left.
Hi. I was just wondering how much communication is facilitated between you guys. Like, how much, Charlene, you're designing with the animations in mind, or how much when you guys animate, you're thinking about the original design, and how do you guys communicate throughout the process?
Well,
the communication's like, we all sit next to each other. We're in like a small group. I think we're like 10 artists or something. Like it's really a small group. So we're constantly talking and showing each other's work, showing each like kind of process, and taking videos and posting them and sharing them with the team and with like the other artists and stuff. So I'd say it's pretty collaborative, like with how we work on it. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, we are working in the same open space at the same corner, so it's always kind of a ping-pong thing, It's every time you have questions, you need feedback, you can see the other ones, or even if we can see each other, we are just facing each other, so it's definitely very easy to have feedback and a fresh eye, on your work.
Yeah, if I'm doing the pack opening, then I'm over Charlene or Jerry over her shoulder super early on, just to kind of start getting a sense of like what we want to do with the opening, like where it's gonna like shatter, and what sort of magic would probably be involved in that, or like electricity or science or what have you. It's really fun just kind of watching the concept get fleshed out and kind of getting more and more ideas for how we want to play those elements up in the animation later on.
All right, I think that puts us about time. Do you have a final one with the audio, Khadija?
Oh, sure.
Show their final work. Let's give everyone a big round of applause for their hard work. I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Enjoy the show.
so they're not up here, but audio always does the final pass on this and makes it totally rad. So I'm gonna mute it for the first loop so that you can fully appreciate all the work that audio does afterwards, because they do a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then we collaborate with the audio team. You'll hear the difference.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming so much.
Thank you.
So,
Switch.